The global economy isn't just slowing down, it's fracturing. While some nations are reaching all time high, others are slipping into a structural decline that most headlines are failing to catch. The IMF and Moody's Analytics have just slashed their growth forecast for 2026. But the real story isn't the number itself, it's the gap. We are witnessing a K shaped divergence where technology giants and AI integrated nations are skyrocketing, while the rest of the world is left to fight over the scrap of a shrinking pie. Here is why the average economic outlook is a lie and who is actually getting left behind. First, we talk about what is the matter. In the simplest term, the global economy is splitting in two. Traditionally, we talk about the global growth as a rising tide that lifts all the boats. But in 2026, the tide isn't rising. It's rushing towards the one half of the world and receding from the other. According to the IMF July's 2026 update, global growth is now projected to sit at 3%, with Moody's even more pessimist at 2.5%. The world economy is currently dominated by the AI investment super cycles, nations that produces or host the massive infrastructure required for artificial intelligence, semiconductors, data centers, and advanced hardware are seeing a massive influx of capital. But if you are a country that doesn't have a seat at that high tech table, you are dealing with the fallout of the Middle East conflict, high energy cost, and a sticky inflation that has refused to go away. Now, what's the real impact is going to be happening? Most mainstream news reports frame that as just a slow growth. That's a massive understatement. The impact here is about the cost of living and the cost of doing businesses. If you are a consumer in a downward leg of the K, your currency is likely weaker, making imported energy and food significantly more expensive. This isn't just a temporary dip, it's a structural realignment. Short term, we are looking at higher interest rates staying for longer. The Federal Reserve, under its current hawkish leadership, has made it clear that they are not going to bail out the global market with the cheap money. Long term, this leads to a brain drain and a capital drain too. If you are a developing economy, the capital you need to build schools or infrastructure instead of flowing it into the data centers in Silicon Valley or Taipei because the returns there are so much higher. We are essentially watching a global wealth transfer from an old industrial world to a new high-tech world. Now, the question is from where it began. To understand why we are here, we have to look back at post-2020 era. When the pandemic hit, the world engaged in a massive synchronized monetary stimulus. Everyone receiving cheap credit that worked for a while, but it credited at everything bubble. By 2023, the crack started to show. Central banks hiked rate, but then the AI boom hit in 2024. That changed everything. Suddenly, the global market didn't care about the broad economic stability. It cared about the chip production. We have saw massive decoupling. Countries that invested heavily in digital infrastructures were able to absorb rate hike, but those who had not, they were left with the debt. Now, in July 2026, we are seeing the final result of the divergence. The IMF's warnings are not new. They are the acknowledgement that the easy money era is over now and the winner takes all era of tech dominance has arrived. So now what is the current condition? Right now, the tension in between the high-tech haves and the commodity have nodes. The Middle East conflict, specifically the disruption of the Strait of Hormuz, has kept energy prices volatile. Government data confirms that the global consumer spending has remained resilient despite that pressure, which is the only thing keeping us out of the formal global recession to be announced. But that resilience is brittle. Moody's reporting suggested that the housing market in the major economies are already going down significantly due to those higher interest rates. Now, this is where it gets dated. Some analysts think that K will eventually close, that technology will make everything so cheap that the downward side of the K will eventually catch up. But I don't see it. I see the world that is becoming increasingly bifurcated. If you don't have the energy security or any digital infrastructure of your own. Pretty cool. You are not just growing slower, you are falling behind in the race that reward speed above anything else. Now, what can be done now? The realistic path forwards are not many. The IMF is calling for structural reforms, which is a fancy economic speak for you need to fix your energy grid and retain your workers for the AI age. But the main thing is that the country that wait for IMF or a global consensus to save them are going to lose. In next 12 months, we are likely to see trade regionalization. Country will stop trying to trade with the whole world and start forming tight blocks based on who has the tech and who has the energy. Watch for the currency move in late 2026. If the US dollar continue to stay that strong, it's going to be a bloodbath for the emerging markets. The winning play for nations and even the individual investors is going to be extremely selective. Being diversified isn't going to help where the divergence is this sharp. You either have to be positioned in the infrastructure of the future or you need to be insulated in a market that doesn't depend on a global trade to survive. The global economy is no longer a tide that can lift all the boats. It's a storm, and your success in the coming years depends entirely on whether you are building a ship for the future or just patching holes in the past.